Yes, yes, yes. We are here again today to talk about the importance of focusing on employee wellness and well being in the workplace and how we can integrate supports within the workplace environment to do that thing. And we're going to talk about it in detail in just one moment. Hello there, and welcome to Stress Talk Live. This is the place where we help women over 40 to live healthier lives through strategic stress management, solution focused self care, and grateful living. I'm your host, Marcyline Bailey, and I'm so glad that you joined me today. We're going to continue our discussion about wellness in the workplace, employee well being, and how it is so important for employers to integrate supports into the environment. A lot of times, employers will offer your standard health care, like in health insurance, um, family leave, or sick leave, vacation as benefits to their employees. That's great. But what happens when the environment itself creates stress and mental health concerns? How is that addressed? And employers don't often do that. Well, today, as we continue our discussion, I want to share some reasons as to why it is in the employer's best interest, as well as the company's best interest, to invest in supports within the workplace environment to support employee well-being. And we're talking about 6 good reasons to weigh the cost versus the benefits of employee well-being. Before we get started, as always, please like, follow, and subscribe to ML Bailey Consultants on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For those of you who are on LinkedIn, you will also find me on LinkedIn. And yes, I am under Marcyline L. Bailey, LCSW. So hit me up and maybe we can link. Also, if you want to check out our resources, you can go to this link as well. So our talk today is 6 good reasons to weigh the costs versus benefits of employee well-being. We know that well-being supports are costly. They do cost. There's just no, I can't say that they don't. They do. They cost. They cost quite a bit. However, in the McKinsey Health Institute and World Economic Forum report that I shared with you last week, and I'll be sharing some information from that report today. In that report, they have found that the benefits outweigh the cost. And they've also found that when companies invest in the well-being of their employees, the value of the company goes up. So I'm going to share with you some reasons. And again, this is coming from the McKinsey Health Institute World Economic Forum report that was published. And I'm going to share these reasons with you. It's kind of exciting to me. I think it's kind of cool, but it's good to know. And although you may be an employee and not necessarily the owner of a business or the person who sits in the C-suite, this is good information for you to know as well. So let's get into it because there's quite a bit of information I want to share with you today. All right. Let's talk about healthy workforce. This is the first uh, good reason to, or the first benefit that employers and businesses um, get from having healthy employees and investing in the well being of their employees. What the World Health, I'm sorry, I keep calling it the World Health Organization, what the World Economic Forum and the McKinsey Health Institute found when they looked at this information from the study that they did is that when employers invest in the well-being of their employees, their healthcare costs go down. Imagine that. Remember, last week I said that insurance companies, health insurance companies, and insurance companies actually base their rates on, I forget the term, but they base their rates on a pool of people. And the healthier that pool of people are, the lower the cost for those premiums. When there are chronic illnesses, chronic conditions, conditions that are of that for which a person or individuals need to have ongoing treatment, the cost of health care, the cost of those premiums go up. Excuse me. So by investing in the well-being of employees, it actually lowers the healthcare cost because employers pay the bulk of the premium. If you ever have had an opportunity to know what the COBRA cost would be, COBRA is when you separate from your company, you are offered an opportunity to continue your healthcare coverage through COBRA. And when people see that cost, they're like, oh my gosh, that's astronomical. And it is. That's because if your employer pays the bulk of like 2/3 of the cost of your healthcare premium every month. So, although healthcare costs keep going up here in the United States, and they do, I don't understand it, but they do. They keep going up. Employers are paying the bulk of that. Venus Williams talked about having to return to the tennis court because they sent her a Cobra letter saying that they were going to cut her health insurance and she had to start playing again, right? And she saw the cost and she was like, "Oh, let me get myself back on this court." So it lowers the healthcare cost. Also, when an employer invests in their employee well-being, into their employees' well-being, it reduces absenteeism. People don't take off as much when they feel good, when they're healthy, and when they're happy. They march right into work singing a song, maybe. Hi ho, it's off to work we go. Okay, I'm being silly now. But yeah, people are glad to go to work when they feel good. And that is a benefit that employees and employers receive when the employer invests in the well-being of their employee. And here's some statistics from the McKinsey Health Institute World Economic Forum report. In the United States, employers spend $226 billion annually due to absenteeism. I use the word spend, but it costs employers over $226 billion when people don't come to work. And that averages out to about $1,700 per employee annually. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Employers are not investing that amount of money in employee well being, I don't think. Just think if they would invest a fraction of that and how that would lower absenteeism. Also, what they found is that When employers invest in preventative care and health programs, it helps decrease the cost of chronic health conditions because it helps to prevent chronic health conditions, which can also be costly, as I've said before. So, the first thing is healthy workforce. That's the first good reason. Let's talk about another good reason. This report found a link between productivity and presenteeism. And they suggested that there may be a causal link. When employers invest in the well-being of their employees, there may be a causal link between productivity and presenteeism. So let's talk about, I mentioned chronic conditions. Let's talk about that a little bit. We're talking about conditions like hypertension, high blood pressure, heart disease, or even mental health conditions like depression or anxiety. Chronic conditions cause a substantial loss in revenue, in productivity for employers. And again, this report stated that the loss is to the tune of $300 per employee annually. That's a lot of money when people are not productive at work. They come to work, but they're not doing the job. They're not effective in their job. They're not efficient in their job, or they just don't do it. Okay, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about lack of productivity and presenteeism. Presenteeism is when a person comes to work, but they are not effective in their work. They're not efficient, and they don't have the ability, due to other reasons, to carry out the normal functions of their role, their job, their task. And chronic conditions can influence that. They also said that in this report that cardiovascular disease costs $156 billion in lost productivity annually. Again, that's a lot of money. When it's a lot. It's a lot of money. And so when employers invest in their employee well-being, they can prevent these chronic health conditions, chronic mental health conditions that can cause the employer to lose through lost productivity or presenteeism. I've talked about chronic conditions as it relates to productivity and presenteeism. Let's talk about insomnia. How many of you out there have trouble sleeping? Raise your hand or drop it in the comment section. Me, I do. You can just say I do, or that's me. When people have trouble sleeping, or when they have insomnia, they have a hard time falling asleep. It takes them a long time to fall asleep. They're not able to fall asleep within 10 or 20 minutes of lying down. Or they wake up during the night and they're unable to fall back asleep. Have you ever found yourself awake at 2 o'clock in the morning and you were like wide awake? You could not go back to sleep. Also, people who wake up early, people who can fall asleep, but they wake up at like 3 and they can't go back to sleep. These are all symptoms of insomnia. And then there are people who just can't sleep at all. They can't fall asleep. They can't stay asleep. They toss and turn during the night. Insomnia. They're not able to sleep. Insomnia costs employers approximately $2,300 more than those who don't have insomnia. So if you have an employee who has insomnia, they're costing you more than an employee who does not have insomnia in lost productivity. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and terminate that employee. No, just invest in well-being in the workplace to help that employee sleep, because sleep can be disturbed but because of health conditions like sleep apnea, or sleep can be disturbed by things like stress, depression, anxiety, mental health concerns. Okay. So untreated insomnia is more costly than for individuals who do not have insomnia, and it also increases absenteeism. Okay, so looking at the link between productivity and presenteeism is also a good reason to weigh the costs versus the benefits of employee well-being. Well, let's also talk about presenteeism. I'm sorry. Let's also talk about I was still looking at my notes for insomnia. So let me go back to insomnia for a second, okay? Presenteeism is increased when people experience insomnia, and that means that you're coming to work but you don't feel good and you're not capable of functioning to so that you're effective with your job task or your role. Individuals who experience insomnia have diminished performance, and they're also more prone to higher rates of accidents and injuries. So, again, investing in employee well being can certainly help with that. Now, let's focus on health results. Another good reason is that when there's a focus on health, it can improve um, it can attract and retain employees. It can attract and retain, help you to retain employees. One of the research studies that was cited in the report that this information is coming from, the McKinsey Health Institute and the World Economic Forum report that I've used for this information, was a Mercer research. And what they said is that companies that foster a culture of health, foster a culture of health, foster a culture of health, see turnover rates that are 11 percentage points lower than those that do not. So when you foster a culture of health, and I love that phrase because that's exactly what I'm talking about, integrating health supports within the environment. That's what fostering a culture of health is about. When you foster a culture of health, your turnover rate is so much lower than those companies that don't. You can retain employees. We've talked about how it's very costly to hire new people. Just the cost of advertising, just the cost of interviewing, just the cost of weeding out and getting the right people who will fit into the organization and then training those people. It costs a lot of money. Just by focusing on health, however, you can lower the rate to which you would have to do that, because you would retain those you would retain good employees. The other thing that you want to look at as an employer is that younger generations view mental and physical health, work-life balance, and job satisfaction in a much greater as having a much greater role in their lives than people of my generation, let's say, or older people. We were just like, hey, we're just going to go to work and we're just going to push through. Whatever we get, we'll just be grateful for it. We're getting a paycheck, we can live. Although the stress might have been killing us, or The chemicals we were working in might have been killing us. We were still there. What we were breathing in might have been killing us, but we were still there. Younger generations look at things differently. They want their employer to be aware of their well-being and to make that a priority. They also want to have work-life balance, and they want to be happy in their jobs. They want to be happy in the environment in which they work. How novel is that? I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. And I think employers, and I know, as according to this report, employers who look at those things and invest in those things have happier and healthier, have a happier, healthier, and engaged workforce, which is our next, our next bullet point. A healthier, happier, engaged workforce increases the company's performance. That's another good reason, you all. What they found is that companies where employees are happy, healthy, and engaged, those companies consistently achieve greater valuations, meaning they have higher economic worth and value. Investors look for that. They also have higher profits. They make more money. Investors look for that. Not only that, they have, quote, superior returns on assets. And what that means is that the returns on assets is a ratio that measures how effective a company uses its assets in order to generate profit. Employees are assets for companies. So when employees are happy, healthy, and engaged, they help their company to consistently achieve and be more valued for investors as well as for the community. So, what's another reason? Let's talk about another reason. And I mentioned investors. This is really, I mean, because every company needs investors, right? Right? They need people to invest in their company because the more money they can invest, the more they can develop new goods and services, which can increase their profit. So investors see a value in health and employee well-being through the environmental, social, and governance framework, ESG. And I have read that there's some controversy about it. However, ESG, excuse me, companies that use this framework have found that there are C-suite execs and CEOs who who believe in this framework because it demonstrates that they believe that this framework is an indication of their value, that they believe in delivering value. It also shows that they believe in long-term investment in their company. And this long-term investment not only affects the company, but it affects the company's workforce as well as the community. When employees are healthy, they participate in their community at greater levels. And that could be that they coach their little girl's soccer team, or that means that they participate in the PTA, or it could mean that they distribute food at the food bank, or they get involved in the political system in their community, right? or they just do good things for their neighbors. When they feel good and they are happy, it is a benefit to the community. And because of that, investors, when they see that companies believe or follow this particular framework, it gives them a higher value in the marketplace, and more investors look to invest in those companies because they see how it influences and impacts the business, the workforce, as well as the community the business is in. So let's talk about the last one. I can't even believe that I'm getting through all 6 of these. I'm so happy about that. I hope you are too. I want you to give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you think about this. Drop a comment in the comment section because I want to hear what you think about this, what we're talking about over um, the next course of lives. Okay. So regulation. Okay. People don't like regulation. They don't like being told what to do. Well, guess what? We're being told what to do, regardless of whether we like it or not, regardless of whether we like what we're being told or not. We're being told what to do. So regulation around safety and well-being. And a lot of you all are familiar with OSHA. That's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Those are the people who say you have to have a hard hat when you go into a construction site. Those are the people who say you have to wear closed-toed shoes when you're in the factory. Those are the people who say that you have to do certain things in order to be safe, right? Well, safety and well-being um, is not only about the regulations, such as OSHA regulations, it's also about transparency. Workers today, communities today, investors today want companies to be transparent. And they want to see transparency around their labor practices, around diversity and inclusion. And yes, I'm saying diversity and inclusion. Yes, I'm going to say it again, diversity and inclusion. Also around mental health supports as well as work life balance. Those things are important to employees as well as investors and to companies. And investors and employees, as well as communities, want transparency around that. And those are, again, when we follow regulations, especially regulations that are beneficial to employees, that's and around health and well being, that's what I'm talking about. And those are good reasons to, again, focus on employee well being. So I can't even, I'm surprised, I'm amazed that we got through 6 good reasons to weigh the cost versus the benefits of employee well being. Again, I hope you are enjoying these lives, this series, because I know I've shifted a bit. I'm not focusing on individuals right now. I'm focusing on the workplace environment because that affects individuals. And we need to know how to advocate for ourselves when we're in the workplace, and how employers can also invest in a way that can make them profitable, that can increase employee productivity, and that can make them a magnet for more investment. Well, that's all for now. I'm glad you joined me. Again, drop your comments in the comment section, and I hope to see you again soon. I'm Marcyline Bailey. As always, take good care.